Hello and welcome to another video version of Tuesday Tapestry. I'm very honored to have with me today Jean Hill, who is our government liaison and also the director of our Peace and Justice Commission for the Diocese of Salt Lake City. Also with us today, I'm honored to have Aidan Bitar, who works at Catholic Community Services and is the director of our Immigrant and Refugee Resettlement Services. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
When we talk today, we're talking about, in a global way, you could say we're talking about people on the move. It's estimated that probably at any given point, we have over 20 million people who are on the move in our world, and probably more than that depending on how you define on the move. What we mean by this would be, for example, immigrants, refugees, asylum seekers, travelers, people who are moving from one place to the next temporarily, or people who are without a home. It involves a lot of different people in the tourism industry, people in circuses, people who are truckers, for example, people who are in the shipping lanes, the cruise industry, all kinds of people who are on the move. For our purposes today, though, we're speaking particularly of immigrants and of refugees. Maybe it'd be a good idea to just define our terms a little bit. So let's just, one of you, when we say immigrant, what do we mean?
Immigrants is somebody who came to the United States either for with a visa, or a student, or across the border without a visa, come to the United States. That is what immigrants we mean, or somebody who came for a temporary visit to the United States.
Good. So an immigrant is somebody who is coming to the U.S., but when we start using other terms, we're getting more specific, like refugee would mean what?
Refugee is someone who fled their home country based on political persecution, religious persecution, or any other oppressions that they experience in their home countries. But the U.S. government is bringing them here, so they have legal status when they come to the United States.
And then when we say asylum seeker, is that much different than a refugee?
It's when they're getting the benefits, they are pretty much the same. But asylum seekers are individuals who are already here in the United States, and then they cannot go back to their home countries. Then they can apply political asylum. Then they will get a political asylum that would allow them to remain in the United States.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Aidan. And I think it's important to remember too that what Mr. Bitar is giving us are legal definitions. These are very strict definitions, and the governments, our government, other governments, abide by them very strictly, and depending on what legal definition you fall into, it will trigger a whole certain set of laws. And of course, when we speak of immigrants, that's a hot potato issue, isn't it, Jean? In our country.
Very much so.
We speak of immigration reform. What basically, a lot of times, referring to immigrants, one of the big issues, of course, is those who are here with documentation and those who do not have documentation. How could a person be out of status or not have documents? What does that mean regarding immigrants, Jean?
And it can mean a number of different things. It may be someone who came with a visa and then their visa expired or didn't get renewed in time or whatever it might be, and they're out of status now. They're no longer here legally with that visa. Or it may mean that you came into the country without those papers that say that you have some kind of legal status. So in whatever way the person is here, and there's a question as to whether they have a legal right to be here necessarily.
Right, gotcha. So it's a complicated issue.
It is.
Very complex. Because one of the points that the Catholic Church makes in this debate about immigration reform and people on the move in general is that we're dealing with human beings, that this is not a question of, we don't want to politicize human beings, we don't want to make them pawns in a political game, but these are human beings who have certain God-given rights, and these rights must be respected. And so even in the case, for example, of an undocumented person, that doesn't mean that they can be treated inhumanely, that they can be treated roughly or without recognizing the rights they have. And so that's a very important point, and our Diocese of Salt Lake City seeks to help people, to assist them, our brothers and sisters, regardless of their race, regardless of what country they come from, regardless of their religion. We want to reach out and help them because Christ said, as often as you did this to me, the least of my brethren, you did it to me. And so it's important for us to be hospitable, to be charitable, to help people as best that we can. That's our call to do that. So what do we do let's take our immigrants first. Let's start with them. I know that we have a lot of immigrants. 80% of the Catholics in the state of Utah, the Diocese of Salt Lake City, are Spanish speaking. So logically, there are a lot of immigrants there. English is the language of the land here in the United States, so they obviously brought that language with them from another country. What kind of services do we have for immigrants here as a diocese, first of all?
Well, we do a lot of services. One of the biggest thing that we do for the immigrants is our immigration program. We do have immigration attorneys on staff that do provide legal immigration counseling, and everything that we do provide to the immigrants is very confidential. We do not release that information to anybody. So we focus mainly on family reunification, all the work that we do, because we see it's important that families not being separated. So a lot of people have been referred to us by the parishes, the community. So when they come to our office, we do give them the legal, advice they need. That otherwise, if they go to a private immigration attorney, it will cost them a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So we do help those individuals. If we cannot help them, we will provide a pro bono attorney in the community that will provide, represent them in the immigration court or anywhere, that they need the help with. But as I say, majority of our work focuses mainly on family reunification.
Marvelous. That's good to hear. And of course, it underscores one of the main objectives of the bishops of the United States, the Catholic bishops, is to keep families together. That's one of our goals in comprehensive immigration reform. So we're really already doing that now, working toward that anyway as best we can as a church to help to keep families together in this process. I know we also, as a diocese, though, do other things for our immigrants too. I know Maria de la Cruz Gray, for example, reaches out to them through the Hispanic Commission. Is there anything else we're doing, Jean, in the diocese?
We do advocacy on behalf of the population as well, and just because we know that you can provide direct service, and we're also required to work for justice. And so we try to represent those families and the human side of the issue at our state legislature and with the federal government, and work to bring that perspective to our elected officials that we're dealing with human beings. And so we try to push for not only justice within the borders, but also to overcome some of the issues that lead people to leave their home country in the first place. And so we do try and be a voice for those who don't have that voice.
That's marvelous, and I'm glad to hear what you say about being advocates, because the Catholic Church and other churches and other groups work hard to advocate for the immigrants, because, and to a degree, I guess you could say, we're a voice for the voiceless, those who may have a harder time expressing their views in the public square. We could do that to help them, and that's very important. We could turn now too, I think, though, to the point of the refugees. It's interesting, and people may not realize that each year the Catholic Diocese of Salt Lake City, working in conjunction with our partners in so many other fields, other religions, and other civic leaders and groups, we help to resettle approximately 500 refugees a year who come to us from a variety of parts of the world, from Myanmar, formerly Burma, from Bhutan, Iraq, Nigeria, all over the world. And it's a wonderful thing that we can be able to participate in this process, because many of our refugees have been living in very, very difficult circumstances, either in their countries of origin or most likely in refugee camps where there is, for example, no running water, little electricity or sporadic electricity. Conditions are basic at best. And so it's a wonderful thing when our refugees can come to the United States to be resettled and to build a life for themselves. Basically, for the most part, our refugees have come to the point in their lives where they've realized that it's just impossible for them to return to their countries of origin, that they would be persecuted, arrested, perhaps even executed if they were to return. And so living in a refugee camp is not a durable solution. So they look to often third countries for durable solutions so that they can set roots and build a life for themselves and their children and their children's children. And so, Aidan, let me just ask you a little bit, what would it be like, for example, what does Catholic Community Services do? The refugee comes, say, off the plane. What is the process, and then how long are they with us, and then where do they go next?
When a refugee comes to Utah, we do have a team of staff who work with those refugees from the day of arrival up until the refugees, stand on their feet. So we do have case managers that go to the airport, and also we work with a lot of parishes that work with the caseworkers hand in hand together. So they go to the airport, meet the refugees, the families, and greet them and feel them welcome, that they have individuals there waiting for them to welcome them, people who they don't know, that just saying welcome to them, that will go a long way for that family. And then, the Catholic Community Services provide housing for the refugees and fully furnished housing. Majority of the furnishings that we put in those apartments are, again, coming from the community. So we do provide employment services, health services, immigration services, and food, and so we work with them for the first 6 months that they are here in the United States. So that 6 months is very intense, the services that we provide for the refugees. We give them all the skills that they know that they need to survive in this country. Because a lot of them are coming, as you said, refugee camps where they don't expose to the Western culture. So when they come here, so they need to know all the life skills, things that we took it for granted. So that's the services what pretty much we provide for them.
Wonderful. That's great. I know it reminds me of a story. Sister Lacey, Marilyn Lacey, a Mercy sister, speaks about her work in California in terms of resettling refugees. And she speaks about a young woman whom she came into their center and they provided lunch for her. She was very, very hungry. They provided lunch. And they came back a little bit later and she hadn't touched it. And they said, well, gee, I thought you were hungry. So I am. And they said, well, how come you haven't eaten? And she said, well, I'm waiting for the others. And they, what do you mean? And she said, well, in my country, we would never eat alone. Eating is a social event, and so I'm waiting for the others to eat with them. So it strikes me that not only do our refugees learn from us, but we learn from them. It's a two-way street, and we can learn a lot from our refugees. And I imagine, Jean, you see that too in the diocese. I would imagine that your commission deals with a lot of areas, a lot of topics that touch on refugees as well.
We do, well, and we do because we also work and have a lot of discussions with Catholic Relief Services, which provides a lot of direct service as well in the home countries as well as here. But we talk about human trafficking, which has been a big issue and is a growing issue. And then all of the problems that Batar sees as well, of just welcoming people into the community and understanding, having patience, understanding that our school systems need to adapt and need to be welcoming as well, and we can again provide some advocacy on behalf of the population to say, here's who we've got coming in. You need to understand that they don't have that same experience that a lot of your students do, that a lot of kids do, and we need to have patience and we need to work with the families and again, just be understanding, patient, and hospitable to the community.
One point, Aidan, that you mentioned a bit ago, I don't want to lose, because I think it's a relatively new program, and that is you mentioned about the parish involvement with our refugees. And I know that Raul is working with you to help involve parishes more. What is that program? What is that all about?
The program is called Welcoming the Stranger Among Us. It's mainly to welcome the refugees into our community, getting more volunteers, mentors from our parishes, sponsoring refugee families so they can, each parish can take some families so they can mentor their family and help them with English, with homework with the children, and helping them with getting them jobs, and so doing a lot of things and becoming a friend with that family and staying for a couple of months until the family successfully adapted to our new culture here.
What's marvelous to me is that here we have Catholic Community Services and Aidan and your work very directly greeting people at the airport, making sure they have a place to stay, giving them all this counseling and assistance as they break into our country, as they set roots in our country. And then Jean setting a stage, helping all of us to be welcoming and hospitable and sensitive to the needs that our refugees may have, and to try to be able to create an atmosphere whereby the refugees will be welcomed and they'll feel welcome. That's such an important part of the process. And so this is very edifying to me as bishop to see all the good works being done by these two wonderful people and by so many others. As I say, Jean works closely with her commission and is on, especially during the legislative session of the state legislature, is working on the Hill there to promote these ideas, and of course Aidan Guitar working daily as well with the refugees and immigrants directly also. So lots going on in our diocese, and perhaps for some this may be news. Perhaps some didn't realize all that we do for our immigrants and our refugees, and we don't just talk about it, but rather we put our money where our mouths are, and we try to do our best to help people. So thank you both very much for being part of our Tuesday Tapestry this day. I'm grateful to you, and good luck and God bless you in all you're doing.
Thank you.
Well, that wraps it up, I think, for our Tuesday Tapestry video version. Thanks for being with us, and may your Advent be blessed with many graces as we anticipate the coming of the Christ child this Christmas. God bless you.